The Miami Heat have pulled off the greatest turn in the history of anything, as they were a whole lot of games under 500 mid-season. They've won a lot of games, and now they're a game under 500, while being right in the thick of things at the bottom of the Eastern Conference playoffs. And with about 20 games left, I wouldn't be surprised if they went up even higher. And as we're going to talk about in this video, I think Miami's flurry of guys who can dribble the ball, go one-on-one, as well as be in pick and rolls, specifically Goran Dragic, Dion Waiters, Tyler Johnson, as well as James Johnson, as well as basically all of those guys being able to shoot, and then a bunch of other guys who can shoot, on top of what Whiteside is doing with his rebounding, his defense, and his pick and roll play. I think these guys are a very scary team for some of the top teams in the Eastern Conference, specifically the Boston Celtics, as well as the Washington Wizards. And first, we're going to talk about just Miami and what they're doing well, and then we're going to talk about how they match up against those two teams. In the months of February and March, which have really been the months where they've gone like Super Saiyan 12, in February, they were 7th in offensive rating, 6th in defensive rating, 6th in rebound percentage, 7th in three-pointers made, 3rd in block shots, and it's pretty much the same thing in March. Actually, a little better in March. They've been the best offensive team in the league in the month of March. So what the hell are they doing? We can start with the star players. We're going to go with Goran Dragic first, through pick and rolls with Hassan Whiteside, which is going to be a very large part of what you hear me say in this video, because Whiteside's been very good for them as well. Through pick and rolls with Hassan Whiteside, which allows Dragic to get inside. He finishes very well with both hands. He's always been damn good when it comes to finishing at the basket. He's also shooting about 6 free throws a game in that span. And then if he's not finishing at the rim, he's oftentimes getting it to someone for an open look, or he's getting the ball to the perimeter where the plethora of three-point shooters can do damage for this Miami Heat team. But he's also had moments where he moves off ball as well, and he's able to do that because the Heat have so many guys who can run a pick and roll. Outside of Dragic, there's Dion Waiters, who's been a revelation and then some, Tyler Johnson, who's been damn good, as well as James Johnson, whose offensive game has just stepped up big time this season to go along with what he can do defensively. So any of those guys could have the ball in their hand, and then Dragic could move off ball, and it's worked out for him. He's been able to get some open looks, moving off screens and stuff. Transition. The guy gets out there. The moment he has the opportunity, whether it be he as the ball handler or, again, just jetting up floor and maybe receiving a pass at half court where he could then finish through contact at the rim or get it to like a corner shooter. Wayne Ellington, you were made for this role. He just kills it in transition, Dragic does. And then another thing he's been a product of, and I think this is Miami's scariest thing, and it goes back to how many ball handlers they have. One guy will drive, beat his guy off the dribble, and then he'll immediately kick it out to some other dude who could dribble, and sometimes this is Dragic, and then Dragic then beats his guy off the dribble, and then he goes in and he does whatever the hell he wants to do at the rim. There's a lot of guys for this Heat team, and they're playing like the best team basketball that you can ever play right now. So that's Dragic. I mean, he's putting up over 20 points a game, doing it extremely efficiently in the last 2 months or so. Now we can talk about Hassan Whiteside. I mean, I've warmed up to Whiteside a bit more. This run is definitely a part of that. His defensive rating is like 105, and I don't think defensive rating just immediately makes you a great defensive player. But the Heat have been one of the best defensive teams in the league all season, and Whiteside's definitely a part of that. The rim protection, and I do think he's gotten a bit better at like defending pick and rolls and moving along the floor. I still think he's vulnerable there, but I think he's improved. We can also talk about the rebounding. I mean, 15 rebounds a game pretty much the last 2.5 months. And to go against a team that has a lot of guys who can create their own shot, run a pick and roll with Whiteside, and then they have a lot of guys who can shoot threes, they're already difficult to defend, and then if Whiteside's grabbing offensive rebounds as well, then it makes sense as to why they've been one of the best offensive teams in the league for a decent stretch of the season now. But I can also say with Whiteside, he's had some post moves like, I've been looking at some of his highlights. He's had games where he's hitting, like, people with hook shots and having some decent range on him, and he's had a couple of face-up moves that lead into, like, pump fakes. I don't think he's gonna be a guy that you just throw the ball to, like, 10 times a game, but he's got some value in the low post, and that's good. It shows some progress on his end. And besides that, I mean, he does all the things that you expect Whiteside to do. He sets screens, he rolls to the rim, he catches alley-oops, he kills it in transition, and he receives dump-off passes from all these guys who can drive. Now we can talk about all the other guys, because there's a lot of them. One, Dion Waiters. What the hell, dude? Waiters has just come out of nowhere. And his ability to, one, beat guys off the dribble, just going one-on-one and playing Dion Waiters ball, but now it's actually working, is huge. On top of he's playing off ball really well. He moves really well within their offense to where if the ball's clicking and guys are all touching it, Dion just finds the perfect spot to get open. Unfortunately, he just had an injury. Who knows how long he's going to be out for. It might not even be that bad. I haven't looked at the news or anything. So Dion's playing great, averaging about 4 assists a game in the last 2.5 months. Tyler Johnson, another guy, can play in the pick and roll, can beat his guy off the dribble, and between Dragic, Waiters, Tyler Johnson, and then Wayne Ellington and Magruder and Luke Babbitt, and then James Johnson if he wants to make his three-pointers, there's so many guys who can hit a three on this team that you always have to pay attention to them. Like, even if Wayne Ellington isn't that great of a player, if he's involved in an offense that has multiple guys who can create and drive and kick, and Ellington's a good three-point shooter, then you have to pay attention to him. I feel like we're seeing the power of the three-point shot so much with this team. It's taking the sum of the Heat's parts, which is like okay, not great, outside of a couple of guys, and it's just making them so much better. And then defensively, they just play well, man. I wouldn't say they have that many natural defenders on their team. I mean, Magruder has been very good defensively. I think he's only a rookie, and he's really emerged as something for them. And Whiteside, like I said, he's improved definitely defensively, and James Johnson has his moments. Outside of those three, I wouldn't really look at anybody on this roster as a defensive player, but they're playing good team defense, and you got to give credit to Spoelstra, the way that he's been able to just get these guys going. But I mentioned before that I'm a Celtics fan. I'm scared of these guys in the playoffs, man. No doubt about it. Because one, Whiteside could grab every rebound against the C's and single-handedly out-rebound them, which is only a slight exaggeration. Now, there is a flip side to it, which is the Celtics have a lot of big guys who can shoot, and if Al Horford's making his threes, then I think Brad Stevens has a lot of options to get Whiteside out of the paint, which he's been able to do in the past, but I'm still terrified of Whiteside's rebounding ability. And then besides that, with all the guys the Heat have who can just move off the dribble, one, I think it makes it pretty difficult to hide Isaiah Thomas, because if he gets matched up on Dragic or Waiters or Tyler Johnson, any one of these guys can do work one-on-one against him. And then, given that it's a team that just drives and kicks and cuts to the basket and shoots threes and kills it in transition so well, I feel like they're a team that could just have the Celtics defense moving side to side a lot, and I just feel like they would give them a lot of trouble. And do I think the Heat could actually upset the Celtics? Yes, 100% I do. They're 22-5 or something crazy in their last 27 games. Now, if they ended up facing the Wizards in round 1, I think Whiteside might not be able to just dominate on the boards as much because he's going to have to deal with Gortat, who is a strong dude who knows how to grab rebounds himself. Even then, Whiteside's going to be a problem, but I think Gortat could survive against him on the boards. I don't know, man. The big thing with the Wizards is their defense. They haven't been good defensively since the All-Star break. They didn't start the season very good defensively, and then they just got their act together. And I think a big reason for it is what happens with Markieff Morris. The Heat have a lot of depth, and the Wizards are now able to go about 7 or 8 guys deep. The big thing is if the Wizards are going to play defense and if their bench guys are going to show up. Because I'm assuming that Miami's going to play defense, and I'm assuming that their bench guys are going to show up because there's 15 of them who all do stuff well. Now, I mentioned earlier how I feel Whiteside has gotten better when it comes to defending the pick and roll. If these guys face the Wizards round 1, we're going to find out how good he really is there because he's going to be dealing with John Wall. And we'd also have to see if James Johnson could defend Wall or Bradley Beal consistently, or maybe you put him on Otto Porter and you choose to hopefully have Porter just taken out of the game if Johnson can show the discipline defensively. Then you can also ask if John Wall will step up his defense and defend Goran Dragic. I think there's a lot of elements to the Wizards and the Heat if they went up against each other. And I don't entirely know what the outcome would be, but once again, Miami's very good, and the Wizards would have to do their homework and they'd have to think about how they're going to go at them, because this would not be a normal first-round series. And I think those are the two teams that the Heat would end up facing, would be either the Celtics or the Wizards. I mean, they theoretically could climb to the 5th seed, but they're like 3 games back on the Hawks, and Atlanta, while they're not very exciting, they're at least a respectable basketball team. So I don't think they would face the 4th seed, which is right now the Raptors, but Wizards-Celtics, I think they both have to be concerned with the Heat. Don't go into that first-round series thinking it's going to be easy, because it is not at all. I also think they could give the Cavaliers some headaches. I would not pick them in a series over the Cavaliers, of course, and I wouldn't be surprised if the series ended in 4 games, but I do think they could give the Cavs, a little bit of a headache. But still, this team is just, they're playing great team basketball. They have a crap ton of shooters. They have a run, jump, and dunk center and Whiteside who's just killing it. Dragic has been one of the best guards in the NBA, period, over the last 2.5 months. And they're just riding a wave of momentum that's ridiculous at this point. Team's scary, man.